I remember the cold that December like it was etched into my bones, the kind of Ardennes chill that seeps through your wool overcoat and settles in your gut, turning every breath into a white plume of regret. It was late 44, the bulge just starting to swell up like a bad infection, and we were hunkered down in those godforsaken foxholes along the Siegfried Line's ragged edge. The 101st Airborne had been yanked from the hedgerows of Normandy and thrown into this frozen hell, but my outfit, Baker Company, 502nd Parachute Infantry Regiment, was a mixed bag of jumpers and straight legs by then, veterans who'd seen too much, and ghosts of men who'd seen it all and paid the price. Me? Sergeant Harlan Preacher Whitaker, 39 years young, with a face like weathered leather and a voice that could curdle milk. They called me Preacher not for any piety. Hell, I hadn't set foot in a church since 41, but because I'd bury a man with words sharper than a bayonet if he crossed me. I'd lost count of the sermons I'd preached over shallow graves, each one a litany of why the war wasn't worth the spit it took to curse it. The front was quiet that morning, the kind of quiet that hums with lies. Snow flurried down in fat, lazy flakes, muffling the distant rumble of our Shermans grinding through the mud somewhere to the east. My squad, 8 souls if you counted the shadows, was sprawled in a cluster of half-frozen slit trenches, the earth so hard we'd had to dynamite the damn things open. There was Corporal Eddie Tex Malone, my right hand, a lanky Texan with a drawl like molasses and eyes that could spot a Kraut sniper from a mile out in a blizzard. He'd earned his tag, dodging a ricochet in Sicily that should have taken his head off. Then Private First Class Joey Sparky Ruiz, the wiry kid from Brooklyn who'd wired half the company's field phones without blowing his fingers off. Ironic, since he'd lost 2 in Anzio to a bouncing Betty. Doc Harlan, no relation, thank Christ, a sawbones from Ohio who could stitch a gut wound while cracking jokes about his ex-wife's meatloaf. And the rest, grunts like Mikey Brooklyn O'Leary, who talked a blue streak to drown out the shakes, and Big Al Bear Kowalski, built like a fridge and meaner than a cornered badger when the shells started falling. We were down to bones after the push through Holland. Market Garden had chewed us up and spat us out, and command was scraping the barrel for replacements. That's when they dumped him on us. Private Sammy Whitaker, 19, fresh as a daisy in spring, with a face that still held on to that boyish roundness, like he hadn't yet learned the world could carve you hollow. Clean-shaven, uniform pressed crisp as if he'd ironed it on the troopship from stateside. His boots shone under the snow, polished to a gleam that screamed stateside R&R, not foxhole purgatory. He stumbled into our sector just after reveille, duffel slung over one shoulder, and one garand cradled like a newborn. The quartermaster sergeant shoved him forward with a grunt. Baker Company's your new home, kid. Don't screw it up. I was squatting by the CP, nursing a tin cup of joe that tasted like axle grease, when he saluted, for Christ's sake, in the middle of a war zone. His eyes darted like a spooked colt, taking in the mud-caked vets who eyed him back with the wariness of wolves sizing up fresh meat. Tex spat a wad of chew into the slush and muttered low, "Look at Mr. Milquetoast. Bet he thinks this is a Boy Scout jamboree." Sparky chuckled, coiling wire with fingers that moved like spider legs, but I shot them both a glare that could freeze mercury. Not yet. Let the kid marinate in his own ignorance first. Private, I barked, standing slow so he'd feel the weight of my shadow. My voice carried that gravelly edge, honed from years of yelling over the roar of Stens and the chatter of Kraut 88s. Name's Whitaker? Like the candy bar? He blinked, straightened like a flagpole. Why yes, Sergeant. Samuel Whitaker, sir. From Detroit. Detroit. City boy, probably grew up wrenching Fords in some greasy garage, dreaming of glory in the newsreels. I could smell the idealism on him. That Greenhorn tang of this'll be over by Christmas bullshit. Stow the sir, Whitaker. I'm Sergeant Harlan Whitaker, no relation, and if there was, I'd disown the branch. Drop your gear and report for inspection. He fumbled the duffel, straps tangling like bad karma, and that's when it happened, the first crack in the facade. As he knelt to untangle it, his garand slipped from his grip, clattering muzzle first into the frozen mud. The bolt carrier pinged against a rock, a sound like a bad omen in the Ardennes quiet. Every head snapped around. Tex's lip curled, Sparky froze mid-twist, wire dangling. Even Doc paused his eternal letter scribbling, eyebrow arched like a question mark. The kid's face went the color of milk, hands scrambling to snatch it up, but the damage was done. That rifle, a beautiful piece, the M1 Garand, with its walnut stock and that satisfying ping when the clip ejected, was now smeared in the filth we'd all worn like a second skin for months. It wasn't just dirt, it was the war's baptism, the gritty sacrament of survival. Christ on a crutch, I growled, stepping close enough to smell the starch on his collar. You drop that again in a hot zone, and it'll be your skull kissing the dirt next. Clean it. Now. He nodded jerkily, fumbling for a rag from his pack. Clean, of course, not the oil-stained rag we'd all hoard like gold. As he wiped, I circled him slow, boots crunching snow, letting the silence stretch like a noose. His gear was a joke. Entrenching tool blade folded wrong. Canteen clipped loose enough to jangle on a march. Bayonet sheath reversed so it'd snag on everything. You packed this yourself, private, or did Mama do it? This ain't a picnic in Belle Isle Park. One rattle from that tinware, and you're a dead giveaway to every Fritz with ears. He mumbled something about basic at Fort Benning, eyes fixed on the rifle like it might bite. Benning, jump school light for us paratroopers, but for him, straight-leg purgatory. I snorted. Benning's where they teach you to march. Here, they teach you to die quiet. Tex sidled up, toothpick rolling between his teeth. Sarge, you reckon he knows which end the bullet comes out? I waved him off, but inside, the knot tightened. We'd lost Tommy Rabbit, Hayes 2 weeks back to a simple tripwire. Good kid, fast as hell, but one wrong step in the snow and boom. No room for clowns in this circus. By noon, the sky had thickened, clouds like bruised knuckles promising more snow. We humped out for a routine patrol along the wire. Nothing fancy, just eyes on the tree line where the pines stood sentinel, branches heavy with white. Sammy trailed at the rear, as greenhorns do, his breath coming in visible puffs that fogged the air. Every step he took was a symphony of amateur errors. Boot scraping too loud on crust, pack shifting with a metallic whisper. Even his breathing, shallow, ragged, like he expected the woods to lunge. I dropped back once, just to glare. Quiet, Whitaker. You're louder than a Sherman with a thrown track. He flushed, adjusted his straps, but 5 minutes later, there it was again, a jingle, faint but fatal. Brooklyn shot me a look over his shoulder, mouthing clown shoes. I ignored it, but the irritation coiled tighter, a spring ready to snap. We hit a shallow rise overlooking a frozen stream, the water choked with ice flows that gleamed dull under the overcast. I signaled halt, hand chopping the air, fist for stop, fingers splayed for eyes on. The squad dropped prone, weapons up, muzzles sweeping the far bank. Nothing stirred but the wind whispering through the evergreens, carrying the faint, acrid tang of wood smoke from some distant farmhouse. Probably civvies, or maybe Kraut-forward observers baking potatoes in a stove heated by stolen coal. You never knew. Sammy belly flopped down last, his Garand thumping awkwardly against his helmet. Easy, I hissed, low enough the wind swallowed it. Treat that piece like your pecker, handle rough, and it'll cost you. He nodded, face pressed to the snow, but I saw the tremble in his shoulders, not just cold, but that wide-eyed fear, the kind that paints targets on your back. We'd all had it once, that first itch between the shoulder blades, waiting for the crack of a car 98K. Mine came on Guadalcanal, 42, when the nips slipped through the vines like ghosts. Lost 3 men that night to bayonets in the dark. Sammy? He looked like he'd bolt at a shadow. As we glassed the tree lean, my binoculars fogging with each exhale, I caught him fumbling his own binos, straps twisted, lenses smudged from careless handling. Christ, kid, I muttered under my breath. You planning to signal the enemy with that shine? The patrol dragged on. 2 hours of creeping through drifts that sucked at your boots like greedy mouths. Sammy's questions started then, the dumb ones that mark a boot for burial. Sarge, how do you know if the snow's covering a minefield? Whispered, of course, but loud in the hush. Tex, crawling point, shot back without turning. When it blows your ass to Jesus, Whitaker. Now shut it. But the kid persisted, voice cracking like thin ice. And the foxholes, do we dig deeper at night? What if the ground freezes solid? I reined in the urge to cuff him, kept my tone level, preacher-like. Dig till your hands bleed, private. Then dig some more. Nights when the wolves come calling. He nodded fervent, like I was dispensing gospel, but it grated. Questions were fine in garrison. Out here, they were distractions, leaks in the dike holding back the flood. Back at the lines by dusk, the real fun began. Artie started up around 1700, the big 105s from our side lobbing shells over our heads in lazy arcs, whistling like banshees before the crump on the horizon. Kraut counter-battery answered quick, those 88s, dual-purpose devils that could flay a tank or a treetop with equal spite. The ground shuddered, snow jumping in puffs, and the air filled with that metallic ozone bite, like lightning trapped in wire. We piled into the trenches, me barking orders, heads down, helmets on. The squad moved like one beast, seasoned muscle memory. Tex slapping a sandbag tighter, Sparky yanking the phone line taut, Doc prepping his morphine syrettes. Sammy? He froze. Stock still in the open, eyes round as saucers, Garen dangling limp at his side. The first shell screamed in, a dud that burrowed harmlessly but shook the earth like God's footfall. Still, he stood, transfixed, snow melting in dark streaks down his collar. Move, you idiot. I lunged, grabbing his collar with one gloved hand, hauling him bodily into the nearest slit. He hit the mud with a splat, helmet askew, and I landed atop, shielding him as the next barrage walked closer. Whump, whump, the ground bucking like a bronco. Shrapnel pinged off the lip, hot flecks that sizzled in the slush. His breath hitched against my chest, panicked gasps that fogged my scarf. Sorry, Sarge, sorry, I just shut it. I snarled, pressing him down as a near-miss fountained dirt over us, raining clods like judgment. The barrage peaked, a symphony of thunder that rattled my teeth, then tapered to echoes. When it lifted, I rolled off, hauling him up by the armpit. His face was a mask of gray mud, eyes wild, uniform torn at the knee where he'd scraped it raw. You freeze again, Whitaker, and I'll shoot you myself to save the Krauts the trouble. He nodded, mute now, wiping sludge from his mouth with a trembling sleeve. The squad emerged blinking, stamping circulation back into limbs. Brooklyn clapped him on the back, harder than needed. Welcome to the orchestra, kid. Next time, dance faster. But there was no warmth in it, just the ritual hazing, the pecking order asserting itself. Tex lit a lucky, offering none, and Sparky busied himself patching a frayed wire, muttering about another mouth breathing our air. Me? I watched Sammy slump against the revetment, fumbling for his entrenching tool like it was a lifeline. The kid couldn't even dig right, blade glancing off the frozen soil at a shallow angle, scooping air more than earth. Deeper, damn it. I coach from afar, voice flat. Or you'll wake up with Fritz's boot in your teeth. He redoubled, arms quivering, but the hole stayed shallow, a grave for a rabbit, not a man. Night fell heavy, the kind that smothers stars and amplifies every creak. We rotated watches, me pulling first with Bear, who snored like a chainsaw in his sleep. Sammy drew the short straw, cleaning details, the grunt work to earn his keep. He shuffled off to the ammo dump, tasked with inventorying clips under lantern light. But not 10 minutes in, I heard the clatter, a full bandolier of 30-06 spilling across the frozen crates, brass glinting like spilled teeth. Bear rumbled awake, cursing in Polish, and I was there in seconds, lanterns swinging shadows like accusations. What in the hell, Whitaker? You trying to light us up for the Luftwaffe? He stammered apologies, hands bloody-knuckled from the cold metal, scooping rounds frantic as a squirrel. One bent cartridge caught my eye, dented from mishandling, useless now. That's $7 down the shitter, I said, holding it up to the flame. Ammo don't grow on trees, boy. Next time, it's coming out your pay, or your hide. He deflated, shoulders hunching under the weight of it all, and that's when the real rot set in. As he knelt there, gathering his mess, a flutter of paper escaped his pocket, a letter, creased and worn, edges soft from handling. It caught on the wind, skittering across the snow before I pinned it with my boot. He lunged for it, but I snatched it first, unfolding under the lantern's glow. Homey script, feminine curves. My dearest Sammy, the factory's humming, but nights are long without you. Remember our dance at the Palladium? Come back soon, my hero. A snapshot tumbled out. Him and civvies, arm around a brunette with victory rolls, both grinning like the war was a rumor. Detroit dreamland. I handed it back, slow, watching his face crumple as he tucked it away. Homesick already, Private? Save the tears for the living. Out here, letters like that are just tombstones waiting to be carved. He looked up, eyes shiny, not with fight, but defeat. I miss her, Sarge. Ma too. They think I'm making a difference. Difference? The word hung, bitter as quinine. I'd burn my own stack after Bastogne, 43, fiancé waiting in Philly, promises of rings and picket fences. Now, just ashes and echoes. We all miss something, kid. But whining won't foxhole you out of an 88 round. Stow it and finish the count. The squad's disdain thickened overnight, a fog you could cut with a K-bar. At chow, cold rations, spam and crackers that tasted like cardboard regret, Sammy sat peripheral, tray balanced on knees, picking at his K-ration entree. Brooklyn regaled us with tales of Coney Island dames, voice pitched loud to exclude the newbie. So she says, Eddie, you're my knight in shining armor. And I says, babe, this armor's got more holes than Swiss. Laughter rippled, ragged but real, the glue holding us. Sammy piped up, tentative, sounds swell. Back home, we had the Woodward Dream Cruise, hot rods parading like it's V-Day. Silence dropped like a curtain. Tex flicked a cigarette, but his way, ember hissing in slush. Hot rods. Kid, your ride here's a garand, and it don't cruise, it kills. Or tries to, if you don't fumble the clip. He shrank, forking spam in silence, but I saw the spark flicker. Hurt, yes, but under it, that stubborn idealist's glow, the belief he could fit, could prove. Prove what? We'd seen a dozen like him. Eager beavers chewed to gristle by the first real scrap. Rabbit Hayes had been one, wrote poetry in his off hours, quoted Shelley while humping the line. Now he was fertilizer for some Dutch tulip field. As the fire crackled low, Sparky tending it with scavenged crates. I caught Sammy stealing glances, trying to weave into the yarn spinning. Sarge, you ever jump? Like, from a plane? Eyes on me, hopeful. I puffed my pipe, the cherry glowing oracular. Twice over Normandy, kid. First time, I kissed the silk and prayed to saints I didn't believe in. Second, I just hoped the Krauts missed. Murmurs of agreement, nods from the old hands. He leaned in, rapt. Must have been something, floating down like that. Tex snorted. Something? It's puking your guts into the harness while flak bursts light up the sky like the fourth gone wrong. Romantic as a root canal. Sammy deflated again, but pressed. But you made it. All of you. That's gotta count. Count. The word twisted, reminding me of the dog tags I'd collected. 23 pairs, heavy as sin in my breast pocket. Counts for a Purple Heart and a plot. Whitaker. Now hit the rack. Dawn Patrol waits for no poet. Sleep came fitful, the trench a icy womb that cradled nightmares. Mine were the usual. Faces from Anzio, screaming silent as shells plucked them like weeds. I woke to Sammy's watch, the kid perched on the lip, garand across knees, staring into the void. His relief was sloppy, muzzle drooping, no skin pattern, just wide-eyed vigil. Anything. I grunted, crawling up. He jumped, nearly tipping the rifle. And no, Sarge. Quiet as church. Church. Ironic from preacher. Quiet's a lie, kid. Fritz loves the hush, slips in like sin. He nodded, but his grip whitened on the stock, knuckles ghosts in the moonlight. I took over, settling in, the weight of the M1 comforting, its end-block clip loaded with 8 rounds of 30-06 that could punch through a log at 300 yards. Familiar heft, the oiled steel cool against my palm, bolt slick from 1,000 cycles. Dawn broke, grudging, a smear of gray light filtering through the pines. We broke fast on D-bars, dense chocolate that stuck to teeth like glue, and geared for the push. Sammy's pack rode wrong again, straps biting shoulders, canteen sloshing audible. I adjusted it rough, yanking buckles till he winced. Tighten this, or it'll jangle you a Purple Heart from a bayonet. He bore it, silent now, the fight leached out by the night's barrage. The march out was a slog, 2 miles through drifts knee-deep, boots punching crust that gave way to sucking mud. Sammy lagged, breath laboring, but tried. God, he tried, lurching forward with grim determination. Halfway, a snap from the woods, branch underfoot, or worse. We froze, weapons up, hearts hammering. Nothing. False alarm. But Sammy's Garand had wandered low, barrel skyward. Up, I snapped, and he jerked it high, clip pinging loose in the haste. 8 rounds scattering like dice in a craps game. Tex scooped them, reloading with a curse. Jesus, kid, you fire that thing yet? Or just use it as a club? The squad tittered, tension bleeding off, but I felt the noose tighten. Burden. That's what he was. Extra weight on our backs, a loose thread in the weave that could unravel us all. We'd humped Elsenborn Ridge last week, lost 2 to a sniper because a rookie, some other poor sap, had whistled a tune to keep spirits up. 1 crack from a Mauser, and whistle he did, red mist. No room for ballads here. The objective was a crossroads, a frozen rut of a road snaking through the forest, marked on the map as possible Kraut supply route. We low-crawled the last 100 yards, bellies to the snow, the cold seeping through fatigues like accusation. I glassed the intersection, abandoned, save for rusted barbed wire and a toppled signpost in mangled German. Clear. But on the pullback, Sammy's boot caught a root, exposed, snow-masked, and he pitched forward, Garand barking unintended. The safety? Off, of course. A single round cracked out, the bolt cycling with that unmistakable ping, echoing like a dinner bell. Birds erupted from the trees, a black cloud of alarm, and in the distance, a faint clatter, mortar tubes shifting, maybe, or just my pulse. God damn it, I hissed, yanking him prone beside me. The squad bellied low, scans frantic, but the woods stayed mockingly still. Back at line, debrief was a roasting. You just announced chow time to every Fritz in earshot, Whitaker. I thundered, voice low thunder. Lucky it was a dry run. Next time, it's wet, for all of us. He hung head, mud-caked, whispering, won't happen again, Sarge. But it would. They always did, till they didn't. That night, as shells whispered overhead, our own, probing, the weight settled. Around the fire's dying glow, the squad spun yarns of home. Tex on rodeos, Brooklyn on subways. Sammy listened, peripheral, then ventured. Detroit's got the river, big and gray. Used to fish with Pa, before the line called him. Pa, probably riveting wings at Willow Run, building B-24s that rained hell on the Reich. Noble. But here, he was the weak link, the crack in the hull. I watched him poke the embers, face lit orange, eyes distant with that letter's ghost. Idealist, dreamer. War would break him, or he'd break us. Either way, the burden chafed, heavy as the snow on our shoulders. Days blurred into a rhythm of patrols and probes, the Bulge's first tremors shaking the line. Sammy's errors piled like cordwood, misfeeding the company's stove with green wood that smoked us out, drawing a half-hearted 81mm probe, forgetting to oil his Garand, bolts sticking in a dry cycle during drill, even his watch, over-talkative to the relief, voice carrying on the wind. Each gaff drew sharper barbs, Sparky dubbing him Clank for the noise, Doc joking he'd prescribe earplugs for the squad. I rode herd, preaching sermons of survival. Eyes front, ears sharp, mouth shut. But inside, the cynicism festered. 39 years, and I'd seen green turn to gray, or to graves. Sammy? He was canvas, blank and begging for the brushstrokes of blood. The real test came midweek, a spoiling raid on a suspected OP hillock, 500 yards into no man's. Lieutenant Hargrove, fresh from OCS, all polish and patent quotes, pointed it on the map. Eyes on that rise, Sergeant. Krauts could spot our armor from there. Hargrove was green as Sammy, but with bars to insulate him. I nodded, plotting the approach, but my gaze slid to the newbie, hunched in corner, sharpening his bayonet with absent strokes. The blade gleamed, but his hands shook faint. Burden. We humped out at dusk, shadows lengthening like fingers. Sammy at rear again, but this time, I paired him with bare, brute force to cover finesse. The hill was a beast, slope ice slick, pines clawing at ankles. Halfway up, the world erupted, trip flare popped, magnesium hiss blinding, and MG-42 chattered, that evil buzzsaw stutter, 1,200 rounds a minute tearing bark to splinters. Down, I roared, diving into drift, the squad splintering to cover. Bullets whined, hot zips that melted snow to steam. Tex returned fire, Garand cracking deliberate. Ping. Reload. Ping. While Sparky low-crawled for better wire angle. Sammy? Screaming, frozen in the open, flares glow, painting him target. A burst stitched the snow at his feet, geysers of white. Whitaker, move your ass. No good. He dropped the Garand. Dropped it, Christ, clattering loud as judgment, and bolted blind, zigzagging toward me. A round clipped his pack, canvas shredding, but he kept coming, terror's fuel. I rose, firing from hip, wild, suppressive, and tackled him into cover as the gun kicked empty. We slid into a root tangle, breath mingling, his eyes wild moons. As Sarge, I shut up and load. I thrust a clip, his fingers fumbling the end block, rounds spilling like tears. The fight peaked frantic. Brooklyn's Thompson hosed the nest. 45 slugs drumming, Doc dragging a grazed bear to safety. I popped up, Garand shouldered, sighting the muzzle flash, that telltale orange wink in the dark. 8 rounds, smooth cycle, crack ping crack, the bolts rhythm my pulse. The MG faltered, a yelp cutting short, then silence but for moans. We swept up, bayonets fixed, hearts pounding brass. The nest was a charnel. 2 krauts, one eviscerated, the other gutshot and gurgling. Hargrove called it win, but I tasted ash. Back, debrief under lantern. Good work, boys. But eyes on Sammy, who sat hugging knees, Garand across lap like shame. Except you, Private. Froze like a virgin on prom night. Dropped your piece? In a firefight? He looked up, voice small. I panicked, Sarge. Thought I was dead. Dead. We all did, every scrap. Panic kills quicker than lead, Whitaker. You're a liability, a goddamn anchor dragging us under. The squad murmured assent, Tex nodding slow. Cut him loose, Sarge, before he gets rabbited. He flinched, but nodded, retreating to his foxhole, a pitiful scoop, walls crumbling. I watched him burrow in, entrenching tools scraping futile, the sounded dirge. Burden. The word looped, heavy as the dog tags in my pocket. War's calculus, 1 weak link, and the chain snaps. I'd saved him tonight, tackled him from death's jaws, but at what cost? My gut twisted, the preacher in me warring with the cynic. Save him or sacrifice? The snow fell thicker, burying the question, but not the dread. The bulge was swelling, and burdens like Sammy Whitaker had a way of breaking men, or being broken. Weeks ground on, the line of frozen scar across the Ardennes, pines bent under snow like penitents. Intel whispered of a big push. Hitler's gamble, they said, to split us like cordwood. But for us, it was patrols and probes, the endless chew of attrition. Sammy's hazing deepened, a ritual to toughen or torment. At mess, his tray accidentally tipped by Brooklyn's boot, sea rats spilling into slush. Oops, clank. Butterfingers much? Laughter, sharp as shrapnel. He cleaned it stoic, but I saw the toll, eyes hollowing, that boyish roundness sharpening to bone. One eve, after a false alarm, distant rumble that turned out to be our own P-47 strafing. I caught him by the latrine pit, retching dry into the snow. Not sickness, but shakes, the 1,000-yard stairs prelude. Homesick, Private? I loomed, pipe smoke curling question. He wiped mouth, straightening. Just, the sounds, Sarge. That buzzsaw gun. Dreams about it. MG-42. The Hitler saw, we called it, that relentless tear. I'd lost sleep to its echo after Tara. Dreams lie, Whitaker. Reality's the blade at your throat. Face it, or it faces you down. He nodded, but lingered, voice cracking. You ever scared, Sarge? Like bone deep? Bone deep. The question pierced, stirring ghosts. Sicily, 43, my first real baptism, landing under fire, legs churning sand as 88s plowed furrows. Scared? Pissed myself, hid it under salt crust. Every damn day, kid. But fear's a tool, wield it, or it wields you. Wisdom from the preacher's pulpit, but hollow. He absorbed it, nodding slow. Then, I want to make you proud. All of you. Like back home, proving to Pa I could fix the Chevy blindfolded. Fix. Mechanic's pride, Detroit grit. Useful, maybe, if he lived long enough. But usefulness was moot when the next barrage hit. Kraut heavies, 150s that walked the earth like wrath. We dove, but Sammy lagged, fumbling helmet strap. Shell after shell, the world a drum of doom, air pressure slamming like fists. I found him after, curled fetal in his shallow hole, ears ringing, lips moving silent prayers. Up, Whitaker. Fight's not over. He rose zombie-like, but his Garand, jammed, bolt half-cycled from wet snow in the action. "Clear it," I yelled over the din, demonstrating the slap-rack-bang drill, but he mimicked clumsy, round casing stuck stubborn. The assault wave broke then, shadows and white smocks, Skeejager slipping flanks. Garen's barked, Ping's echoing chorus, Thompson's chattering brass. I dropped two, headshots clean at 50 yards, the M1's recoil a familiar kick to shoulder. Tex flanked left, dead-eye true, felling a third. But Sammy fired wild, clip dumped at a phantom, 8 rounds wasted on trees 400 yards out, too far for the Garen's bite, without irons. Ping ping ping, empty before the echo died. Reload, damn it. A Skeejager lunged his way, MP40 stuttering, but Bear intercepted, K-bar flashing red in moonlight. The kid stood exposed, fumbling fresh clip, face slack shock. I covered, dragging him down as bullets whined hims. The raid repelled, 10 krauts down, us unscathed but for scratches. The squad exulted grim, slapping backs. But for Sammy? Wasted your load on squirrels, clank. Brooklyn jeered, reloading casual. He hung head, clip finally seated, bolt slamming home. Sorry, just saw movement. Movement. The forest played tricks, shadows to specters. I pulled him aside later, voice low. Save the ammo for flesh, private. Trees don't bleed, but we do. The burden swelled, a cancer. Nights, I'd wake to his murmurs, letters recited to dark. Dear Ma, the boys are swell. Swell. If only. His gear still rattled on march, a morse of mistakes. One patrol, crossing a stream. Ice thin as resolve. He plunged through, wading waist deep, chattering teeth broadcasting position. We hauled him out, stripped to skivvies by fire, but the delay cost. Distant rumble, 88 probing. Clumsy as a bull in China, kid, Tex grumbled, tossing dry socks. Sammy warmed silent, shame blanket. Yet glimmers, stubborn sparks. He'd volunteer for latrine duty, scrubbing till knuckles raw, or mend a torn poncho with thread from his kit. Small things, but the squad noticed, barbs blunting slight. Doc even shared a smoke once, gruff. Keep at it, son. War's a forge, burns off the dross. I watched, conflicted. The cynic sneered, too late, too green. But the preacher wondered, could fire temper, not shatter? The tipping came eve of the big push, intel buzzing of armor massing. Panthers, maybe tigers, Hitler's iron fist. We prepped feverish, cleaning Garens, oiling bolts till they gleamed sin black, checking grenades, frag and smoke, pineapples heavy in pouches. Sammy struggled with his fingers slipping on the spoon, safety pin stubborn. Like this, Sparky coached rare kind, demonstrating the pull arc throw. He got it. Third try, arc landing clean. Progress? Or desperation? As we racked out, him in his deepened foxhole, finally fox-sized, I pondered the arc. From clean boot to mud wraith in weeks. The Ardennes chewed slow, but sure. Burdened still, yes, his freeze in the raid haunted, a ghost at flank. But in the quiet, pipe smoke veiling stars, I admitted the lie. Not just liability, but mirror. 39, and fear still whispered. Maybe that's the war's cruelest jest. Greenhorns remind us we're all rusting inside. Dawn broke brittle, the Bulge's maw yawning. Orders came. Probe east, eyes on roads for armor. Sammy geared quiet, Garen slung proper, pack cinched tight. No rattle. As we stepped off, me point, his eyes met mine. Not scared boy, but resolve flickering. Ready, Sarge? Soft, but steady. I nodded curt, preacher's benediction unspoken. Burden? Perhaps. But chains forge in fire. The woods swallowed us, snow muffling steps, and the weight lifted fraction, just enough to march. The map room in the CP tent smelled of damp canvas and stale coffee, the kind that had been boiled down to tar and left to congeal in the pot. Lieutenant Hargrove hunched over the folding table, his pointer, a splintered stick from some shattered pine, jabbing at the creased overlay like it owed him money. The Bulge was no longer a whisper. It was a roar building in the east, Hitler's last gasp clawing at our lines like a dying man at a life raft. Intel from the 99th Division had trickled in overnight, Kraut panzers massing in the Losheim Gap, SS boys in black with their fancy tigers and panthers, ready to punch through to the Meuse. Our job? Baker Company was to seize Hill 402, a knuckle of rock and snow overlooking Route 62, the artery they'd used to bleed us dry. "Eyes on that ridge, Sergeant," Hargrove said, his voice all West Point brass, eyes gleaming with that officer's fire, untested but burning hot. "If we spot armor, call it in. Artillery will do the rest." I studied the topo lines, fingers tracing the contours. Hill 402 rose like a fist from the forest floor, 800 yards of steep, iced over misery, flanked by draws that could hide a company or a column. Fog clung to the valleys, thick as pea soup, promising cover but cursing visibility. My squad was ragged. Tex with a cough that rattled like loose bearings, Bear nursing a twisted ankle from the last probe, Sparky down to 9 fingers, but still twisting wire like a surgeon. And Sammy, the kid, hovered at the tent flap, helmet tucked under arm, trying to look invisible. He'd come far in the weeks since his arrival, gear finally quiet, digs deep enough to swallow a man. But the raid on the OP had scarred him, left him with that haunted twitch when the wind sighed too loud. Liability still, though the barbs had dulled to prods. Last night, around the fire, Brooklyn had even tossed him a dog end of a smoke, grumbling, "Don't cough it back," clank. Progress or pity. Either way, the hill meant risk, and risk meant choices. Hargrove rolled up the map, sealing it with a nod. "Move out at 0600. Take the north draw," less wire reported. "And Preacher, keep it tight. No heroes." Heroes. The word soured on my tongue. Heroes ended up in body bags with citations pinned to their chests. I saluted crisp, masking the churn in my gut, and ducked out into the pre-dawn murk. The squad was mustering by the jeeps, breath pluming in the halogen glow of truck headlights, Garand slung like old friends. Doc checked his med pack, Surrette's glinting like silver bullets. Tex sighted down his barrel. The M1s would stock worn to a sheen from 1,000 wipes. Sammy stood apart, fiddling with his pack straps, eyes on the eastern sky where the first bruise of light bled through the clouds. He caught my look, straightened. "All set, Sarge." Set. As if words could weld the cracks. I gathered them in a huddle, voices low against the wind's murmur. Hill 402. North draw to the crest. Tex on point, Brooklyn rear. Sparky, you're on the horn. Keep that reel tight, no tangles. Doc, stick mid-bear, you and me flank left. Whitaker. The name hung, and 8 pairs of eyes slid his way. Curious, wary, weary. He stiffened, waiting for the boot. I waited, the math of men and metal. The draw was narrow, a gutshot of a path where one slip could funnel us into a kill zone. Bets first, always, Tex's eyes, Bear's bulk to break trail. But the ridge needed eyes, a lone watcher to glass the road without skylining the whole squad. Risky. Suicide, if Fritz had patrols. Perfect for washing hands of a burden. The thought slithered cold, Preacher's guilt warring with Sergeant Steele. Send him solo, with a phone reel and orders to report. If he bought it, clean, no blood on my hands, just the fog. If he made it, well, miracles happened, but not to Greenhorns. Whitaker, I said finally, voice flat as frozen steel. You take the east spur off the crest. 100 yards, no more. String the field phone, Sparky'll splice you in. Glass the road, report armor. Any. And stay low. No skyline. His face paled, the blood draining like ink and water, but he nodded jerk. Sharp, soldierly. Tex's jaw tightened, a flicker of something like pity crossing his drawl-hard features. Brooklyn muttered low. Sarge, kid's greener than puke. He'll trip a flare first step. I shot him a glare that could curdle cream. He'll manage. Or he won't. Either way, main body's clean. Doc cleared his throat, med kit slung heavy. Want me to dose him with something? Nerve tonic? No. I snapped, sharper than intended. He swims or sinks on his own. Sammy's eyes met mine then, wide, but not breaking. I'll get it done, Sarge. Promise. Promise. The word echoed hollow, like so many before. Rabbit had promised the same on that Dutch dike. We stepped off at first gray, the forest a cathedral of shadows and snow, pines whispering secrets in the wind. Boots crunched crust, muffled by orders to tape down gear. No jingles, no ghosts. Tex led, M1 at low ready, his lanky frame weaving through the underbrush like smoke. The north draw swallowed us, walls of drifted white rising steep, roots like snares underfoot. Fog thickened, visibility down to 50 yards, the air heavy with pine sap and the faint rot of leaf mold. My breath fogged the crag's peep sight, old habit from basic, though I'd traded it for the Garand years back. Now it was just muscle memory, thumbing the safety off as we humped. Halfway in, the kid's pack brushed mine. Sammy, mid-column, the phone reel slung heavy over his shoulder, 500 yards of coiled copper serpent. It weighed 20 pounds dry, more with frost, and he carried it like a cross, straps biting into wool. Easy on the swing, Whitaker, I growled low, not turning. That clank'll wake the dead. He adjusted, silent, but I felt the squad's eyes, Bear grunting ahead, parting brush with his bulk, Sparky trailing with splice kit, fingers dancing phantom wires. The draw narrowed, air turning stale, the fog a living thing that pressed lungs. Distant crump echoed. Artillery dueling miles off, our 155s trading punches with 88s, the ground vibrating faint like a tuning fork. We crested the false ridge at 0700, the spur branching east, a knife edge of rock and rime, dropping sheer to the valley. Route 62 snaked below, a gray scar through white, empty but for abandoned hulks. A burned-out Opel, chassis skeletal, tires long gnawed by frost. Clear for now. I signaled halt, fist clenched, and the squad bellied down, weapons out. Tex glassed the treeline opposite, Beano's steady. Nothing stirrin', Sarge. But Fogg's playing tricks. I nodded, turning to Sammy. He'd unslung the reel, hands trembling faint as he paid out line. Copper braids snaking over snow, Sparky splicing the end to our main wire with practiced twists. The kid's face was slick with sweat under the helmet liner, despite the bite, eyes flicking to the drop like it hungered. Here's the drill, I said, voice pitched for him alone, though all ears strained. Follow this spur 100 yards, stays low, hugs the lee. Dig in shallow, no fox, too exposed. Glass the road east and west. Spot panzers, call it. Type, count, hull numbers if you can. Static if trouble. We'll hold the crest for extract. He nodded, throat working swallow. The reel went over his shoulder, Garand slung tight. A frag looped to his belt like talisman. No more words. Pity was poison. I clapped his arm once, hard, sergeant send-off, and watched him melt into the fog, a shadow swallowed whole. The squad watched too, silent, the wind sighing elegy. Tex broke it first, spitting into snow. Kid's got stones, Sarge. Or he's dumber in dirt. Both? I muttered, shouldering my pack. Now main plan. We push the crest, overwatch the draw. If Fritz shows, we pin him till the barrage rolls. Brooklyn chambered around, Thompson's bolt slick snick. And if Clank don't call, he will. Or we hump blind. Lies all of it. Deep down, the cynic preached. Boys fertilizer by noon, clean cut to the rot. Save the vets from his drag. War's mercy, wrapped in orders. We moved, the spur's ghost lingering at flank, fog closing ranks. The crest was a bald pate of granite, wind-scoured and iced, offering views to the Meuse on clear days, but now just a white void. We dug hasty scrapes, entrenching tools biting frozen earth, chips flying like sparks, sandbagging lips with mittened fists. Sparky hooked the phone to the CP line, crank whirring test, static hiss, then clear. Base, this is Baker actual. On station. Affirmative crackled back, faint but firm. Doc distributed K-Rats, crackers and cheese spread, the paste like axle grease on tongue. Bear gnawed his in silence, ankle wrapped tight, while Brooklyn sketched obscene cartoons in the snow with bayonet tip, Fritz with horns, Shermans with grins. Laughter low, tensions vent. Bayonne 900, the fog thinned patchy, shreds lifting like veils. Route 62 gleamed below, empty still, but my gut nodded. That old itch, the one that saved your hide or damned your soul. We'd taken Hill for, oh, too easy. Too easy. The draw's wire cut fresh, no patrols tripped. Trap? Or Luck's thin smile. I glassed the far tree lean, pine standing sentinel, shadows pooling deep. Nothing. Eyes sharp. I murmured, passing the Beanos to Texas. He swept slow, drawl absent. Something's off, Sarge. Too quiet for Christmas. The phone jangled then, Insistent buzz, Sparky snatching the handpiece. Baker actual, go. Pause, static chew, then Sammy's voice, tinny, edged with wind whine. Crest, this is Spur Road clear west. East, wait, movement. Trucks, 3. Half-tracks maybe. No armor yet. Heart quickened, but steady. Probe, not push. Copy, Spur holding glass. Report changes. Click. The squad leaned in, ears straining echo. Kids alive. Brooklyn grunted, relief masked gruff. For now, we waited, the morning dragging leaden. Wind picked up, keening through rocks, carrying faint diesel rumble, distant but growing. My pipe went unlit, tobacco pouch heavy pocket, the ritual denied by nerves. Memories surfaced unbidden. Sicily again, that ridge above Gela, fog hiding 88s till they barked flame. Lost half the platoon to direct fire, hulls blooming orange. Shake it off. Focus on the now. The scrape's lip, the Garens weighed across knees. Text hummed low, some cowboy dirge, to steady hands. 11:30, phone buzzed again. Sparky yanked it. Spur? Talk. Pause, breath heavy. Half-tracks confirmed, for now. Infantry dismounting. 50, maybe more. Engineers, looks like. Laying wire. Engineers. Bridge builders for armor. My pulse thrummed. Armor tailing? Static chew. Negative. But roads kicking up dust east. Big dust. Dust. Panzers, kicking snow to powder. Copy. Hold fast. We're calling it. I cranked the bass line, voice clipped. Red leg, this is Baker actual. Grid 23 to 45, route 62 east. Engineer probe, armor probable. Fire mission, over. Affirmative rumbled back. 105's tasking, 10 mics. The squad prepped, clips checked, grenades palmed warm. Bears sighted his bar, bipod dug in, the 30-06 belt draped like serpent. Let him come, Sarge. I'll hose the bastards. I nodded, but eyes on the spur, empty, fog-shrouded. Where was the kid's ping? Confirmation? The rumble grew, a basso growl under the wind, hulls grinding gears. Then, crack. Single Garen shot, faint but sharp, the ping lost in echo. Followed by shouts, German gutturals, alarmed. Another crack, then silence. My gut iced. Spurs engaged, Sparky hissed, handpiece dead. No call. No static. Just the wind's laugh. Hargrove's voice crackled urgent. Baker, report. Fire mission walking. Engaged light, LT holding. Lie to buy time. But inside, the preacher sermonized. Boys down. Throats slid in the snow. Phone crushed under boot. Clean into the burden. We'd mourn later, over rum and lies. The dust cloud swelled, shapes resolving. Half-tracks first, SD. KFC, 251s, canvas flaps tied, troops spilling like ants. Then the beasts, panthers, low-slung shadows, 75 millimeters muzzles questing, tracks churning white to mud. 5 at least. SS markings, black crosses stark. Contact. Text barked, unnecessary. The world lit then. Our barrage marching in, 105's whistling banshee before the crump, geysers of snow and steel. Half-track flipped, blooming fire, troops scattering. Panthers traversed, Cokes, MGs chattering, tracers lancing gold. We answered, Garen's cracking chorus, pings of empty clips a dirge. My first round took a dismount mid-stride, center mass, the M1 kicking shoulder like old friend. Reload smooth, and block slapping home, bolt ram forward. Bears bar roared, stitching a line that bowled 3. But the panzers closed, hulls shrugging rounds like rain. The 50 calories Cokes on one chewing our lip to splinters. The spur stayed silent, a ghost limb. Kid's gone, I thought, sighting a panther's vision slit. Missed, glass spiderwebbed but intact. Fritz poured in, infantry hugging hulls, MP-40s stuttering spite. Brooklyn's Thompson drummed. 45's punching close, but a grenade arced, steel hand grenade, potato masher spin, and bloomed in his scrape, shrapnel whining. He yelped, clutching arm, blood dark on snow. Doc crawled, Surret out, but the line bucked. Another cat closer, main gun traversing lazy. Risk. I'd sent the boy to die to spare the squad this? No, this was the gamble, the Bulge's bite. Fog rolled back, revealing more. Another panther, turret slewing our way. The air thickened with cordite bite, snow melting to slush under boot. We'd hold the crest 10 minutes, maybe 20, till ammo starved or hulls closed. Then the draw for exfil, under fire. Burden? Sammy was the least of it now. War's weight crushed all. The barrage lifted too soon. Danger close, they called, leaving echoes and craters. Fritz pressed, panzers grinding deliberate, infantry leaping from wrecks, bayonets fixed on FG-42s. One Panther, command cat, antennas whipping, halted 200 yards, spotting us, the 75 barking flame. Shell screamed high, bursting rear, showering rock. We fired back futile. 30-06 pinging off sloped armor like pebbles on tin. Techs nailed a loader spilling from a hatch, but the beast shrugged, tracks churning closer. Phone dead, spur silent. Kid's eyes glassed over somewhere, staring blind at the sky. My fault, Sergeant's sin. But regret was luxury, survival sermon now. Fix bayonets. I roared, though the M1's blade felt archaic against steel. Bear stood, bar hosing, belt slapping hot, but a burst caught him high. Chest blooming red, toppling back with a gurgle. Doc lunged, but too late. Morphine wasted on gasps. Bear. Brooklyn yelled, arm-bound hasty, Thompson empty. Reload, drums swapped frantic. The lead Panther halted, turret questing, the commander's cupola hatch cracking open. Officer glassing us, binoculars steady. Arrogant bastard. I sighted, held breath, squeezed. Crack ping. The round true, shattering glass, the head jerking back. No kill, but the cat slewed wild, MG silent moment. Cheers ragged from the squad, for left, ammo low. But more hulls crested the rise, engines snarling, the ground trembling under treads like Judgment Day. We'd sent the Greenhorn on a suicide mission, but as the fog swirled and the iron closed, I wondered if we'd all followed. The crest was no overwatch. It was a grave, dug hasty in snow. And Sammy? Just the first plot. The ambush hit like God's own hammer, the world erupting in a symphony of steel and screams that no amount of foxhole preaching could drown. We'd held the crest of Hill 402 for what felt like eternity, but was barely an hour, the fog lifting just enough to paint targets before the barrage walked in. Our 105's thundering glory, shells burrowing deep before the bloom of orange and black, hurling Kraut half-tracks skyward like toys in a tantrum. One flipped end over end, landing inverted with a crunch that echoed off the pines, troops spilling out in knots of white camo, some twitching, others scrambling for cover. The Panthers, those sleek, sloped devils, halted in the draw below, turrets traversing frantic, their 75mm KWK 42's barking return fire that plowed furrows in the snow mere yards behind our scrapes. Wump crack, the air pressure slamming like a fist, shrapnel hissing hot through the mist. I was prone behind the lip, Garen shouldered, the walnut stock slick with sweat despite the freeze, sighting through the peep at a dismount who'd bellied too close. SS rune on his collar, young as sin, MP40 chattering wild. Crack ping, the bolts cycled smooth, my 8th round taking him mid-roll, center mass, the body flopping limp like a rag doll punched by wind. Reload, end block slapped home, the metallic tang sharp nose, 8 more lives in brass. The squad fired in ragged chorus, Texas M1 deliberate, each ping a punctuation, Brooklyn's Thompson drumming fury. 45 ACP chewing close-range rats, Sparky popping from his wire nest, Garen barking support, Doc patching Bear. No, Bear was down, chest a ruin, eyes staring blank at the overcast like he'd seen the punchline to war's cruel joke. 2 men gone already, the crest a charnel of spent casings and blood-flecked snow. Pour it on. I bellowed, voice raw over the din, the wind whipping words to shreds. The lead Panther, big cat, command markings, antennas like whiskers, ground forward, tracks devouring the slope, diesel growl a basso under the chatter. It's Coke's MG42, that goddamn buzzsaw, stitched our line, 1,200 rounds a minute tearing sandbags to confetti, bullets whining hymns of hate. One zipped past my helmet, close enough to singe your hair, the ricochet pinging off rock behind. I ducked, heart hammering brass, and popped up firing. Wild burst at the hull, rounds sparking harmless off the glassy plate. that sloped armor laughing at our pea shooters. The M1 Garand was queen of infantry rifles, sure, semi-auto bite. 30-06 punch, but against 100 millimeters of rolled steel, it was spitting at thunder. Below, Fritz swarmed. Engineers turned assault, 100 maybe, white smocks blending with drift, grenades arcing lazy from gloved fists. Steel hand grenades, those stick-handled bastards, spun end over end, bursting with potato masher spite, frag peppering our scrapes like hail on tin roof. One landed short of Brooklyn, snow muffling the pop, but splinters kissed his boot, leather shredding. "Motherfucker," he yelped, rolling, Thompson hosing the thrower, a shadow toppling mid-stride. Doc crawled his way, sulfa powder dusting the gash, voice calm as Sunday sermon. "Hold still, Mikey. Ain't your ticket home yet?" But calm cracked when the radio, Sparky's pride, that SCR 536, took a stray, antenna shearing clean, the set sparking blue death. "Camo's fucked," Sparky yelled, hurling it aside, grabbing his Garand instead. No call to base, no extract. We were blind, cut off, the crest an island in a sea of gray steel. The trap snapped shut then, realization cold as the snow seeping through my fatigues. Hill 402 wasn't a probe point. It was bait. The north draw of funnel weed walked blind. Intel wrong. Or salted, some SS bastard feeding us ghosts. The fog had hid the build-up, half-tracks laying false wire to lure, while panzers circled flank. 5 cats now, hulls cresting east, engines bellowing triumph, troops dismounting in waves. FG-42S cracking selective, snipers pinging from pines. One took Tex high in the shoulder, spinning him back, blood dark bloom on wool. "Grazed," he grunted, reloading one-handed, draw tight. But grazes add up, and we were bleeding slow. I glassed frantic, binos fogged, wiped on sleeve, spotting the noose. Kraut infantry sealing the rear draw, shadows in white advancing methodical, mortars thumping setup. Nebelwerfers? No, 81 MMS, tubes rising like vipers. First rounds walked in lazy, air bursting overhead, shrapnel raining silver death. One burst kissed our lip, frag nicking my cheek, warm trickle ignored. Down. Useless order, we were worms in the dirt, bellies grinding frozen earth, the cold numbing fingers till triggers slipped. My Garand jammed then, wet snow in the op rod, bolt half-cycled stubborn. Slap rack bang, the drill preacher's catechism, but it stuck, casing extractor claw dulled from grit. Fuck. I hammered it on helmet edge, rounds chambering finally, but the delay cost. A Fritz grenadier close, 50 yards, lobbing another masher. It bounced my scrape, bursting backblast hot, ears ringing bells. The squad shrank, bear gone, Tex fading white, Brooklyn firing one-armed, Sparky down to last clip, Doc binding wounds with hands red as Christmas. Me? Preacher without flock, dog tags heavy pocket, each name a ghost. We'd lost the Spurs' eyes. Sammy, that fool kid, probably cold meat in some drift, phone line cut, last word static. Didn't blame him, blame the war, the orders, the cynicism that sent a boy to wolves. The Panthers closed to 100 yards, turrets questing, one spotting Doc's med armband, Red Cross Stark, and traversing lazy. No, I lunged, firing full clip. Ping ping ping, empty fast, the round spidering the mantlet but slowing nothing. The 75 roared, shell plowing Doc's scrape, earth fountaining, his cry cut short in the bloom. For left. Situation? Fubar, fucked up beyond all recognition. Mortars walked closer, 81 millimeters crumps marching inexorable, air thick with cordite bite and the wet copper reek of blood. Infantry crested the false ridge, 200 strong now. SS fanatics with that 1,000-yard zeal, bayonets low, advancing wave. Garand's answered, but clips dwindled, my last end block half spent, bolt pinging warning. Tex dropped another, headshot clean, but slumped after, shoulder wounds soaking through field dressing. Can't. Hold, Sarge. Brooklyn nodded grim, Thompson clicking dry. End of the line, preacher. Make it count. I nodded, throat tight, the weight crashing, lives trusted, squandered on a hill of ice. The lead Panther halted, commander popping hatch, pistol raised triumphant. Signal for the rush. Bayonets fixed, we rose as one. 4 shadows against white, roaring defiance. The world narrowed, my Garen's last rounds. Muzzle flash orange wink, Fritz falling in 2s and 3s. But numbers crushed, bayonets clashing steel song. The melee a blur of wool and wool, grunts and gasps. A blade kissed my ribs, shallow but burning, while parting wet. I countered, M1's bayonet punching home, hot resistance giving way. Then, darkness edged vision, blood loss or despair, the crest a slaughter pen. We'd bought minutes, sold dear, but the trap held. No extract, no glory, just the Bulge's maw, swallowing whole. And Sammy? Forgotten in the red fog, just another ghost in the preacher's litany. The chaos in the kraut rear started subtle, a glitch in the machine we'd thought unbreakable. A single ping that cut through the melee's roar like a needle in hay. We were down to knives and fists by then. The crest of Hill 402 a slick abattoir of snow turned pink. My ribs afire that each breath stoked hotter. Blood seeping warm under wool to freeze sticky. Brooklyn lay twisted nearby, Thompson bayonet deep in a Fritz's gut, his own throat a red ruin from a FG-42 burst, eyes glassy, mouth agape, an unfinished curse. Tex slumped against a boulder, shoulder swathed hasty, firing deliberate from his Garand till the clip pinged empty, then clubbing with buttstock. Texan drawl, slurred to growl. Sparky was last man standing besides me, wiry frame a whirlwind, K-bar flashing in the half-light, splicing flesh like faulty wire. 4 SS boys circled him, MP-40s discarded for blades, their white smocks splashed crimson. He dropped one, gut stab clean, but took a slash across thigh, staggering. The panther loomed close, the command cat, treads grinding halt 30 yards off, its hull a behemoth of sloped steel, 75 millimeters muzzle drooping our way like judgment. The loader popped hatch, feeding rounds frantic, while the gunner traversed, Coke's MG-42 chattering spite that chewed rock to dust. I bellied low, Garand empty, bayonet slick with use, the air thick with diesel reek and the butcher shop tang of opened men. No time for preacher's words, just survival's grunt, crawling for Brooklyn's dropped Thompson, fingers numb clawing snow. Bullets whined him overhead, one kissing stone inches from scalp, chipping ice that stung like bees. Then, the ping. Unmistakable, that en-block eject of an M1 Garand, faint but clear, echoing from the spur's fog shroud like a ghost's call. Followed by a yelp. German, sharp alarm, and the clatter of a dropped weapon. The squad froze mid-breath, Tex pausing mid-swing, club raised, Sparky twisting from a lunge, eyes wide. Me? Heart stuttered, ribs forgotten, as another crack sounded, deliberate, the bolts cycle a metronome of method. A Fritz grenadier near the panther's flank jerked, steel hand grenade tumbling unthrown, bursting harmless at his feet in a puff of frag and snow. The cat's crew startled, hatch slamming half, heads swiveling rearward, shouts guttural over the engine's rumble. What the fuck? Tex rasped, drawl cracking, as chaos rippled through the kraut line. Infantry halted mid-charge, heads turning east, MP-40s questing shadows. A third shot, pink crack, dropped an officer mid-stride, his binoculars shattering, body folding neat. Panic bloomed, white smocks milling, a half-tracks driver gunning reverse, tracks slipping wild in slush. The Panther's commander barked orders from cupola, pistol waving, but his words drowned in the sudden grenade bloom. Not ours, but from the treeline, a frag sailing arc to kiss the MG-42 nest on the hull. Burst orange, the gunner screaming, flames licking Coke's barrel, silencing the buzzsaw. We gaped, breaths ragged. The melee's fury leached to confusion. Ghost, Sparky whispered, K-bar dripping, as his circle of foes scattered, eyes on the spur. More shouts now, Fritz radios crackling urgent, officers gesturing frantic, the advance crumbling to disorder. A second Panther, trailing, slewed turret rearward, main gun barking blind into fog, shell plowing harmless through pine, splinter shower. But the shots continued, methodical, unhurried, each ping a promise, felling shadows one by one. An engineer toppled, wire spool rolling free. A radio man clutched throat, set sparking blue. Hope flickered then, first in hours, a candle in the storm, guttering but real. The noose loosened, Kraut infantry peeling back, hugging hulls for cover, their zeal curdled to doubt. The command panther reversed, treads churning mud, commander ducking low as another Garand crack whispered death. Close, too close, the round kissing fender. Use it, I roared, surging up, snatching the Thompson, drum heavy blessed. The squad rallied, Tex reloading limp, Sparky hobbling support, firing into the milling mass, our rounds now biting flesh unshielded. A half-track exploded rearward, fuel line kissed grenade, blooming inferno that lit the fog orange, shadows dancing macabre. The ghost pressed, not spectral, but soldierly, shots economical, targets high value. Officers, gunners, the glue of command. Fritz faltered, retreat turning route, panzers grinding back down the draw, infantry stumbling after, leaving dead and wounded to the snow. Mortars silenced, tubes abandoned mid-setup, the thump of 81 MMS fading echo. We held the crest, breaths heaving, the wind sighing relief over the carnage, bodies twisted, gear strewn like confetti from hell's parade. Tex slumped, Garand across lap, face ashen. Sarge, that spur? Kid's playing Reaper. I glassed the fog, ribs throbbing, blood crusting wool, but no silhouette, no helmet glint, no shadow stir. Just the ping's echo and the sudden quiet, broken only by groans and the distant rumble of fleeing engines. Don't know. I muttered, but gut knew. Impossible, but there. The burden, sent to die, haunting back life. Doc's ghost would laugh, if he could. We patched hasty, sulfa on Tex's shoulder, Sparky's thigh-bound belt tight, and waited, the spur's mystery a balm on wounds. Hope, rare as dry socks, warmed the freeze. Whoever the phantom, he bought us breath. And in war's ledger, that was sermon enough. The Panther's turret word final, the 75mm muzzle questing our shattered line like a serpent's tongue, the commander's cupola hatch cracked just enough for eyes to gleam triumph through the slit. Hill 402's crest was a ruin. Scrapes collapsed, sandbags eviscerated, the snow a canvas slashed red and black with cordite burns. Tex lay propped on elbow, Garand empty, shoulder wounds seeping through hasty dressing, his drawl a wheeze. End it quick, Sarge. Ain't dying slow. Sparky knelt nearby, thigh-bound crude, K-bar clutched white-knuckled, eyes on the cat's tread as it ground closer. Diesel growled, drowning his curses. Me? Ribs a furnace, blood loss graying vision, the Thompson's drum light in hands. Last mag, 20 rounds of 45 mercy. The Fritz infantry hung back now, emboldened by the Panzer's shadow, FG-42S raised, waiting for the gun to speak. It did, bark thunderous, the shell plowing our lip, earth erupting in a geyser that buried Sparky's legs, his scream cut short by rockfall. The world tilted, ears ringing cathedral bells, and I fired blind. Thompson chattering, slugs pinging harmless off the glassy, the drum clicking empty. Useless. The cat halted 20 yards, loader feeding brass, gunner traversing lazy for the kill shot. Endgame. My mind flashed sermons unpreached, Philly girl, burned letters, jumps over Normandy, silk bloom, faces of the fallen, rabbit to bear, ghosts and dog tags heavy pocket. Then, explosion, not forward but rear, a muffled whomp from the Panther's engine deck that belched black smoke, oil fire licking vents. The turret slewed wild, commander ducking frantic, shouts guttural over intercom whine. The hull shuddered, treads slipping reverse, as flames crawled hull, igniting fuel lines in a whoosh of orange hunger. Crew bailed, hatches popping, figures tumbling to snow, pistols drawn but eyes wide panic. Infantry surged confused, medics rushing, but our ghost struck again. Garand cracked from the fog, dropping the commander mid-leap, headshot clean, body folding neat. From the draw's edge, a figure rose, muddy wraith, helmet low, Garand slung smoking. Sammy Whitaker, face streaked black, uniform torn rags, but eyes steady, no boy left. He moved deliberate, not charging but flanking, a scavenged Panzerfaust, hollow-charged devil, tube heavy, shouldered from a fallen Fritz. The remaining Panzers hesitated, turrets questing, but he fired true. Whoosh crack, the rocket kissing second cat's side, penetrating thin armor, blooming internal hell. Crew screams echoed. Hatch jams frantic, the beast slewing dead. The rout cascaded, Fritz breaking, white smocks fleeing draw, officers bellowing futile. Sammy closed on the burning command panther, circling low, Garen barking precise. Loader down, gunner clutching gut. He reached the hull, not boarding but prying, mechanic's hands, Detroit sure, yanking a panel loose amid flames roar, exposing vitals. No bomb, no charge, just wrench from pack, smashing fuel pump deliberate, ensuring the pyre spread. Then, to the infantry's flank, M1 pinging method, felling 3, forcing scatter. We watched, stunned, text chuckling wet, kid's a goddamn wizard. Sparky dragged free, limping join. Sammy reached our line, collapsing knee-deep snow, Garen planted like staff. Spur clear, Sarge, he gasped, voice raw but firm. Armor column, 5 Panthers, 12 half-tracks. Called the barrage. Line cut, so. Improvised. The phone reel lay shredded spur side. Fritz patrol he'd ambushed solo, bodies cooling, his work. Mechanic's touch, bypassed a wrecked Opal for cover, silenced the wire team with blade, then the spur's ghosts, shots from defilade, drawing them piecemeal. I hauled him up, hand on shoulder, ribs forgotten. No words, preachers nod, curt, the highest grace. Vets gathered, eyes new respect, techs clapping back, Sparky splicing grin. Later, by fire's glow, scavenged crates, ammo crates warm, the squad circled, flicks past silent. Sammy took mine, rum burning throat, the circle hole. Burden lifted, forged brother. The bulge raged on, but on that hill, a boy became man, and war's ledger balanced. One captured ghost, worth 1,000 graves.